I want to talk about monsters, specifically the monsters living in our basement, the ones we think we know. You guys know the Minotaur, right? And the Cyclops, the classic Greek nightmares. We all grew up with the stories like Percy Jackson, Clash of the Titans. We think of them as just cool fantasy creatures, boss battles. But here is the thing that keeps me up at night. Not really, but I was digging into the archives recently, looking at the actual archaeology behind these myths, and I realized something. These aren't just stories, these are kind of arguments. They are political, and in some cases, they are just scientific mistakes. That's my house, by the way. I just built it. I know, don't judge it too harshly. So, while I harvest and replant this field of wheat, I want to tell you the truth about two of the most famous monsters in history. And I promise you, the truth is way weirder than the myth. So put this on your second monitor or just close your eyes and listen. We are just hanging out. And yes, so let's start with the Minotaur, the big guy. Just in case you missed that day in history class, let me set the scene. Because the original story is actually way more messed up than people remember. So the myth goes like this. You have a king Minos, the ruler of Crete, and he's the most powerful king in the world. He controls the oceans, but he offends the gods, Poseidon specifically, the dad of Percy Jackson. And the Greek gods, they don't just fine you, they get creative with it. So Poseidon cursed the king's wife, Queen Pasiphae, to fall in love with a bull. Yes, a magnificent white bull sent from the seas. And well, nature takes a very unnatural course. The queen gets involved with the bull, and 9 months later, she gives a birth to a monster, Astrius. That was his original name, the Minotaur. Hello, also meet my cat. I still have to name tag it. I just found it like a few hours back, so let me get her to come to the bed real quick. Oh, more weight, nice. So anyway, so where was I? Yeah, the queen gets involved with the bull, and the 9 months later, she gives birth to a monster, Astrius, the Minotaur, half man, half bull, and hungry for human flesh. King Minos is horrified, but he can't kill it. It's technically a semi divine being. So he hires a genius inventor named Daedalus to build a prison. A prison so complex, so twisting and turning that no one can ever escape it. The labyrinth. And it's the same inventor who built the wings for the Icarus. So he locks the monster in the center, but the monster needs to eat. So Minos uses his navy to force the city of Athens, which was his rival, to send him a tribute. Every 9 years, Athens has to ship over 7 boys and 7 girls. With no weapons, no armor, they are just thrown into this dark maze to wander around until they hear the breathing, and then they are eaten. It's a horror story, really, and it paints Crete as this house of horror, a place of blood and darkness and mayhem. And it only ends when the Athenian hero, Theseus, volunteers as tribute, sails to Crete, navigates the maze with a ball of thread, and kills the beast. It's a great story. It makes Athens looks like the heroes and Crete looks like villains, but the reality check. That story, it is arguably the most successful piece of political propaganda in human history. Because see, around 1900, an archaeology named Arthur Evans started digging on the island of Crete. He was looking for the legendary labyrinth, of course, and he found something big. He found a massive, sprawling complex at a place called Knossos. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. There will be subtitles linked in this video. But it wasn't a dungeon, it was kind of like a paradise. The labyrinth was actually a palace, believe it or not, and calling it a palace is almost an understatement. It was a city under one roof. We are talking 1,300 rooms spread across 5 acres. It had grand staircases, light wells to bring sun into the basement, and massive courtyards. And here's the twist, it had plumbing. I'm not joking. While the rest of the world was literally digging holes in the ground for you know what, the Minons had a complex system of terracotta pipes hidden in the walls. They had flush toilets. They had a drainage system to handle storm water. This is 2000 BC. This is 2000 years before Rome. So imagine you are a simple Greek farmer from the mainland. You visit this place, you see a building so huge, you get lost in it. You see water disappearing into the wall, you hear the weird noise echoing through the pipes. You don't think, wow, great engineering. You think, this is a magic. This is a maze. This must be a prison. So the labyrinth wasn't a maze, it was just really big, complicated luxury that the neighbors just didn't understand. Okay, so the labyrinth was just a palace as we established. But what about the monster? Where did the bull man comes from? Well, the Minons did worship the bull. We know that. We see it everywhere in their art. Horns on the roof, bull heads on the vase, but they didn't have a monster, they had athletes. This is my favorite part. So we found these frescoes, okay, painting on the walls that show a sport called bull leaping, and it is exactly what it sounds like. I'll pop up an image on your screen right now. The art shows that the young men and women, yes, both genders, gender equality, standing in front of a charging bull, they would grab it by the horns, and as the bull flings its head up to go them, they would use that momentum to launch themselves into a backflip that would somersault over the bull's back and land on their feet behind it. Think about the physics of that. Imagine the adrenaline, and think of this as like a Olympic gymnasts meets rodeo, but if you mess up, well, you die. So my cat is just if you have a name for her, drop it in comment section below. Anyway, and they weren't jumping over cows, by the way. They were jumping over aurochs, the wild ancestors of modern cattle. These things were 6 feet tall at the shoulder. They were tanks. So put yourself in the shoes of the Athenians again, the guys who wrote the myth. You are the underdog. You are the smaller city. You look at Crete and you see this powerful, rich empire. They have this confusing, massive palace, and they have this terrifying sport where your kids may be sent as slaves or tributes or forced to dodge bulls. When Athens eventually took over after the Minoan civilization collapsed, probably because of the Thera volcanic eruption, uh, they needed to justify their rule. They couldn't admit that the old bosses were cooler and more advanced, so they twisted everything. That sophisticated palace, now it's a confusing prison. That sacred bull god, it's a monster born of a sin. And that dangerous sport, it's a human sacrifice. And Theseus didn't just kill a beast, he symbolically killed the old culture to make a way for a new one. And it's genius, really, and kind of terrifying. That it reminds you that history is often written by the one who wins, the victors, and the victors get to draw the monsters. So that's the Minotaur, not a monster, just a propaganda. Let me just expand this field a bit more, and I jumped on a crop field. Great. But yeah, it's funny how much of history is just people being jealous of their neighbors, but sometimes monsters aren't political. Sometimes they're just mistake. Honest, scientific mistake. And since we have some time left and I have this huge field to cover, I want to tell you about another monster. That's why I am in the title. It's stories, not a story. I want to tell you about another monster, the Cyclops. You know, the one-eyed giant, the Percy's brother. Sorry, I've been watching Percy Jackson, or actually reading Percy Jackson, as that's the only reference I can give right now, because that CGI is kind of horrible in the new series. So the Cyclops, the most famous one is Polyphemus from the Odyssey. Odysseus lands on an island, gets trapped in a cave by a giant shepherd with one big eye in middle of his forehead. It's a classic monster encounter. For centuries, historians just thought, okay, it's a fairy tale, giants aren't real, one-eyed men aren't real. But then paleontologists started looking at the map. Where did these myths come from? Where was Odysseus? Oh my god, Odysseus supposed to be? Sicily, Crete, Malta, the islands of Mediterranean. And when they started digging the caves on these islands, they found skulls, lot of them. Now here is where it gets kind of wild. Back in the Ice Age, the Pleistocene, these islands were home to elephants. But because they were trapped on islands with limited food, they evolved to be tiny. It's called as insular dwarfism. We call them dwarf elephants, or Paleoloxodon falconeri. Believe me, I am a wildlife researcher and these are the hard scientific names to pronounce. But these were They were like tiny elephants. Some were only about 3 feet tall at the shoulder. Imagine an elephant the size of a golden retriever. They were adorable and they lived there for a thousand of years until they went extinct. But their bones stayed in the caves. Now picture this. You are an ancient Greek sailor. It's 800 BC. You have never seen an elephant. You don't even know what an elephant is. You stumble into a dark cave in Sicily to get out of a storm and you find a skull. And it's huge, twice the size of human head. And it looks vaguely human because it has a round forehead. But right in the center of the face, there is a massive gaping hole. Now we know that hole is a nasal cavity. It's where the trunk attaches. The actual eye socket or on elephant are on the sides, and they are kinda hard to see on a skull. But if you don't know about trunks, you look at that skull and there is only one logical conclusion, that this thing had one giant eye right in the middle of forehead. And just like that, the Cyclops is born. Think about that. The myth says that the Cyclops lived in caves. Well, that's where the fossils are. And the myth says that they were giants. Well, the skulls are huge compared to humans. And the myth also says that they were shepherds. Maybe that's us trying to make sense of finding these bones next to the other animal bones. So, yeah, it wasn't a monster, it was a fossil, really. It was a dwarf elephant that died thousands of years before. And we just didn't have a science to understand what we were looking at. And this isn't the only time this happened. There's a theory that the griffin, the lion with the eagle beak, was inspired by dinosaur fossils. So there is that theory as well. Ancient people were finding dinosaurs and elephants and inventing like these dragons and giants and everything to explain them. And I'm just trying to make this look kinda like a more like a wheat field. And be easy on me in the comments if you are looking at this. And I broke the wheat. I love that. I love that so many of our monsters are just us trying to explain the world. The Minotaur was us trying to explain the civilization we feared. The Cyclops was us trying to explain fossils we didn't understand. And it makes the world feel a little less scary. There are no monsters in the basement, just politics and the old bones. Anyway, I think I'm finally making a dent in the harvest. This field is way too big and it's going to be even bigger. I might build an auto farmer, but I kinda enjoy this manual labor. So I hope you guys enjoyed this slower pace. It's nice to just ramble sometimes without a script or a deadline. So if you liked this farming philosophy vibe, let me know in the comments. I can do more of these. Maybe next time we talk about sea monsters while I build a dock, maybe, or go on a ocean expedition. And if you want the main high production documentaries, you know where to find them. Check out the channel, Simply Wild, and you can see all the high documentary archival footage and everything. So thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for listening. Keep exploring, keep wondering, and as always, keep it simply wild. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.